Hey, you're there. If you like the content I bring, your help is essential. For the channel to remain active and grow more and more, I need your support. Each new follower is a huge incentive to continue creating exciting stories and videos full of fun and adventures. Also, by subscribing, you help me convert this passion into sustainable work, which allows me to offer you even more surprising content. As soon as you don't forget to subscribe, please like and share. Your participation makes all the difference. Isabela always believed that true love resisted time and distance. Since she was 16, her heart belonged to Raphael, the boy who grew up with her on the same street, sharing dreams, confidences, and promises. When they turned 20, he left to study medicine in another city, and she stayed, working in her father's bookstore. They were 5 years of video calls, passionate letters, and plans for a future together. Every time someone questioned this long-distance relationship, Isabela smiled sweetly. "He is the man of my life," she said with conviction. What she didn't know is that miles away, Raphael was no longer saying the same thing. For months, the signs were there, but Isabela refused to see them. The calls became shorter, the messages less frequent. Raphael, who had been affectionate and present, now seemed to be in a hurry, too busy to listen to her talk about her simple daily life. When she finally decided to surprise him, she took a bus without warning, anxious to see him again. When she arrived, the image that formed before her eyes was a brutal blow. Raphael, laughing, hugging another woman right in front of her apartment. No explanation, no remorse. Just the awkward silence and the look of someone who had already moved on long before her. Isabela froze. She felt the ground disappear. Raphael only said, "It's not what you think," before turning his back and going inside with the other woman. On the way home, her heart seemed to break with every mile. She cried silently, staring out the window, as if the world had become a strange and hostile place. When she arrived, she locked herself in her room for days, refusing food, words, or advice. For the first time, Isabela felt ashamed of having loved so much, of having believed so blindly. Her father, a hard man of few words, sat outside the door, whispering, "You are strong, my daughter. Don't forget that." But Isabela didn't feel strong. She felt empty. Days passed, and the pain did not diminish. Raphael's betrayal was not just a breach of trust, it was the collapse of a castle that she had built herself, brick by brick, with the certainty that love was the only necessary cement. Isabela began to suffer from insomnia, recurring nightmares and anxiety attacks. She avoided leaving the house, seeing friends, even going to the bookstore. The image of Raphael smiling with another woman burned in her memory like a wound that would not heal. The words he had said in the past, swearing eternal love, now sounded like mockery. She asked herself day after day, how could he forget me so easily? It was on a rainy afternoon that everything changed. Sitting on the floor of her room with torn photos all around her, Isabela finally screamed. Not in pain, but in fury. She felt her chest burn with a new feeling, indignation. For the first time, she realized that she was not just a victim, but a woman who had been deceived, betrayed, diminished. And she would not allow that anymore. She got up, washed her face, and looked in the mirror. "Enough," she said to herself. "He destroyed what I was. Now I will rebuild what he never managed to achieve. My strength." It was the beginning of a turning point. Isabela returned to the bookstore. At first, customers noticed her sad eyes, the absence of the smile that used to light up the room. But over time, she found herself again. She began writing letters to herself, as if she were her best friend. She went back to school and enrolled in a night school psychology course. She wanted to understand not only others, but especially herself. Raphael still appeared in her thoughts, but now as a reminder of what she would never accept again. She no longer sought revenge. She sought evolution. The woman he had destroyed was dead. The one who was being reborn was relentless. Little by little, life began to smile on Isabela again. At college, she met people with similar stories. She formed a small support group with other women who had gone through abusive relationships, betrayals and abandonments. The pain that had previously silenced her now served as a bridge. Her suffering began to have a purpose. She listened, advised, and welcomed others. Her sensitivity became her greatest gift. But even surrounded by new friendships and discoveries, Isabela still faced internal battles. At night, in the dark, the questions returned. Will I ever be enough for anyone? One afternoon, as she was leaving college, she bumped into Raphael. He was different, messy hair, a haggard appearance. He tried to smile awkwardly. Isabela, But she interrupted him with a firm look. No, you don't have room here anymore. Raphael tried to insist, said he had made a mistake, that he thought about her every day, but it was too late. Isabela didn't feel anger nor pain. She felt pity. He was still the same, stuck in excuses and empty promises, and she was no longer that girl dependent on love. She was now whole. The reunion served as a seal on the healing process. Isabela realized that she didn't need excuses to move on. That night, she wrote her last letter, a letter to Raphael, not to send, but to give closure. She wrote everything she felt, everything she experienced, everything she learned. At the end, she wrote in large letters, "Thank you for destroying me, because that's how I discovered what I'm made of." She burned the letter in silence, watching the flames consume each word. There, she freed herself completely. Months passed. Isabela graduated with honors and was invited to give lectures on emotional health and resilience. She wrote a book based on the letters she had written to herself, and the book became a hit among women of all ages. Her father's bookstore also became a place for welcoming and sharing reading. The fragile girl who had once lost herself in love was now inspiring others to find themselves again. She wasn't looking for applause. She just wanted to make sure no woman felt what she felt. The helplessness of believing she wasn't enough. Fame brought invitations, interviews, and even new suitors. But Isabela was no longer impressed by flowers or pretty words. Now she observed attitudes, coherence, and silence at the right moments. A new man appeared in her life, Pedro, someone who did not come to save her, but to walk by her side. He knew how to listen, respected her pain, and never tried to diminish it. But Isabela knew, even if he left, she would still stand. Because her strength now came from within, not from other people's promises. At an event where she was speaking, she saw Raphael in the audience. He was applauding her, moved. At the end, he tried to get closer. "You've become incredible," he said, with tears in his eyes. She thanked him without irony but firmly. "I always was. I just needed to remember that." He tried to say something else, but Isabela was already surrounded by women who wanted to hear her, hug her, thank her. She said goodbye with a smile and turned. Around, Raphael stood there, standing like a ghost from the past, and she walked towards the future. The newspapers talked about the young writer who turned pain into strength. But for Isabela, it wasn't about fame, it was about purpose. When she helped a young woman in crisis, she saw herself in that pain. When she wrote, she felt that each letter healed another wound. She didn't forget Raphael, but she turned him into a lesson. The greatest of all, never lose yourself to love. Never again. Depend on someone to feel whole. Her heart was healed, but not closed, just wiser. One late afternoon, sitting on the bench in the square where she had waited for Raphael so many times, Isabela was now writing new letters, no longer to the past, but to the future. It was a ritual of rebirth. With the sun touching her face, she smiled, not because she had won, but because she had survived. Her story was not a fairy tale. It was real, marked by falls, disappointments, and new beginnings. And that was what made her so special. She was not perfect, she was true. Today, Isabela is a symbol of overcoming, not because she never cried, but because she knew how to transform each tear into fuel. Raphael, a chapter closed. Pedro, a light companion. But most importantly, she, with herself, is finally at peace. When asked if she still believes in love, Isabela answers, "I do, but now the first love of my life is me." And she will never abandon that one.